something, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that was why we stopped working on it, because it was like, okay, we got it to the point where things are working in a good way. And it was a whole lot of, like, you know,
So
setting
push your
object and
Y
an object
button
doesn't.
and
And the other way we
Alright.
had it was, if I'm holding an object and you reached out and grabbed it, you would automatically take
all new to all of us.
I actually
like,
put
that
in
was
some
our-
logic
this
to
is
prevent
cool.
that, yeah.
Yeah, there was
this is
logic that
very
was put in to
cool.
prevent that, and also
The very loud
we had issues
guy
where
over there
Matt
that said Matt Summers is the
would
guy
say
that made
that
Okay.
when
I
you
like-
would grab
I
an
really
object and then
like-
leave, it would not let go of the ownership, so
Yeah.
no one could
I
interact with
like
it from that point on until the
that.
server
Yeah.
It's
reset.
so different for
And
everyone.
that was
We're
fixed in
very
version
quiet.
2 of
The
Normcore.
problem was that we're working on that,
Wait,
and
what?
then they're like version 2 is right around
You
the
got
corner.
lots of people here.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, why are we going to keep working on this?
So,
So it was either
It was actually not
Can
much
you-
effort to
honestly, you put
upgrades from
3D
V1 to
models
V2.
in, like
It
that
was
car.
pretty much identical,
Can
other
you
than
animate that
there were a
3D
couple
model?
settings that were added to some performance.
Why not?
Yep.
And
Here, get
Not
closer to
much
Jack
more
and
than
ask him.
So
Yeah,
major
this is-
changes were
This is
behind
a
the
Unity
scenes that
project, so you can do
didn't
anything you can do in Unity.
major
Got it.
change.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
these little setting
okay, so
things
you could like have
For
a
what?
3D model and
The-
then
the
just
chest
do a
thing?
simulation,
Well,
have
that's
it
not
do
new.
a simulation,
Before
You
and
guys
Unity
did
created
that?
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
yep.
that was that was an addition that he made. That
That's
was
very
actually one of the
cool.
scenes that a
So hit
sculpture
your
made.
Y button and set your name.
That's very
the
very
keyboard,
cool.
yeah. That was kind of fun. I
Okay,
wanted to
okay.
get a little like heartbeat effect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool.
We'll get
don't
one
have
more
to-
left
don't
out.
It's kind of got the Pixel
You're
Phone
back.
logo if you look at it straight on
There
the
we go.
diamond.
So that's the universal
Oh, yeah.
symbol. Hi, Kyle. That's the
Hey.
universal symbol of taking your taking your quest off and going ahead and go do something.
And in Iowa too. Iowa as well.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no teleporting in
I don't
here.
know why Patrick is.
Way up in the air, because no one else is.
So Patrick,
You know
I'm
what?
at standing height
Maybe,
right now.
maybe the floor height is off.
Yeah, I think my floor height must be off. I'm gonna leave and then
Yeah,
fix
probably,
it.
yeah,
Does it
play
look?
space,
I put,
maybe.
I
Yeah,
put one
the
on
Guardian.
earlier. Does it? Can you?
Yeah.
Does it
I'll
make?
be back.
Can you
All right.
make it?
thanks for the warning.
Your audio's breaking up, Lester.
Oh, can you put it with
Your
the
audio is
sound?
breaking up.
Okay.
Oh, how about mine, Kyle?
Oh, yours sounds good.
Yours sounds good, Scott.
I'm Scott. Yeah. You sound okay to me though, Lester. Say something. He's gone. So you were able to
It
put
might
one of those helmets on.
Very.
Yep.
Very
Okay.
cool.
Through your eyes, Marty.
You sound pretty good to me, Les.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm good to meet
Marty's
you
got
now.
the camera eyes.
Okay. I turned my volume up a little bit.
Okay.
So Marty, is that you or are you the camera?
Both.
Oh. So
No.
Marty's being the Twitch screen.
Okay.
So if anybody goes over to Twitch, they'll see what Marty's saying. Okay, Matt, what else can I pick up here besides the helmet?
Well, unfortunately, the helmet's the only interactive item that's in here right now.
Well,
Yeah.
There's another scene that has a whole bunch of stuff, but it has a ton of Pixar memes in it, and I didn't want to like expose you guys.
Yeah.
It's
I may
bordering on
disappoint
obscene.
my main disappointment yesterday was that I couldn't go in the windmill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's currently the teleport. It does work, but it's currently disabled, so there's no way to climb up things. You know, the player controller doesn't have like slope interaction or anything. Hey, you're not up in the air now.
How did you get tall now? What's it?
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
probably standing.
Yeah, okay.
Let me sit
All
back
How about me,
down.
Patrick? What happens when I do this? There we go. Yeah.
If it is some shady, please
How'd you fix
stand
your
up.
height, Patrick?
I fixed my Guardian.
What do you do with network?
Give him a
Brad?
dum-dum.
So this is done with Normcore.
Normcore.
Yep. So the
Did it really
voice system and the network transport is all Normcore. So it's not using
Cool.
any Oculus anything. So that means it would be cross-platform. You could use this on Vive or Rift or Quest or whatever.
Or iPad.
Maybe, I don't know. They do have a mobile SDK. I haven't done much with that, but technically it's an option.
Thought they had like some demo where they mixed like AR and with a VR user. So
Yep, totally.
Yeah, they did.
I haven't messed with it.
I personally haven't messed with that, but I do know that it exists.
Yeah, we tried it out. It was kind of neat. I mean, unless you're doing something really specific, like exactly that,
Yeah. All Spaces does do that, where you can have, there's multiple clients, so you can have, a person logged in on a console, a person logged in on a headset, and a person logged in on a phone or tablet.
Yeah.
And they can all play together. I can't imagine that the tablet interface is great, but
Yeah.
even the Xbox one was the PC desktop one was a little sketchy. Like we messed with that when we were doing the Global Game Jam. So, and
is the Faces part of Normcore too as well?
Part of it.
Okay.
So like, Foreman modified a bunch of the stuff. So like the eye blinks.
Yeah.
Just to spoil it for everybody else. So.
All right.
It's gonna ruin the value of the talk now. So we can go to the bar, right? Right, guys? Right?
The bar is that door back there behind the windmill.
I see myself out. Ian, come back!
I've already tried it.
Oh, it doesn't work.
Bar's a lie, is what you're saying? No!
Oh, there is a door back there.
Well, you don't want people jumping to their death off the windmill.
Someone would.
I would.
I do have to say, I was looking at the 3M headset, and Zach actually sent me a listing for that actual headset. Because
the welding helmet?
Yeah, because I was wondering why 3M chose the default material for their glass.
It's not exactly Unity missing texture pink.
It's
not exactly.
It's a little reflective.
It shares similarities, but it's not the missing texture.
So we also put this on. I'm gonna see what it looks like on somebody else.
Yeah.
Oops. Got it. No, that.
Is it the optics?
Yep. A little bit.
Yeah, you see a little square kind of in your peripheral vision.
Yeah. You grab.
I'll take it.
Trigger. Forward trigger. Front trigger.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That's weird. That's really weird, actually.
We did figure out there is a bug, and that is that I can take it out. If you hold it out, take it off your head, and then I can grab it. Well, you have it. I can still grab it. I mean, actually, it's not letting me do it right now. Sometimes it does though.
I like it appears like you have it, but he thinks he has it.
Can you put it on someone's head by throwing it on there?
We had a really similar bug with 1.1 where it would float in the middle between you. So I would grab it from you, and then it would be floating in the middle of the space.
So one of the things you can do is, like, if it works, sometimes it doesn't always do it, but if somebody's holding it out and you take it from them, it instantly grabs to you, and from their perspective, it still looks like they're holding it, but if they let go, it flies towards whoever's holding it. So, but like, it looks like right now it's maintaining ownership. So maybe because there's enough people in here. Maybe because there's enough people in here, it's not screwing up. But
oh, I got it in my hand right now.
Give me that. Give me it.
Do you see it in your hand, or do I have it?
No, it's in your hands.
Okay.
I let go of it, and you just happen to be grabbing it at the same time. So.
Oh, okay.
So, are we going to get 30 people in here? I invited somebody.
I don't think so.
How many people have you had in here?
What's the max?
I can tell
the
you how
max
many
right now
people
is
have accepted the
30.
email.
And thanks to Zach for helping me get
if
in.
we had more than 30 people show up,
Yeah.
I could input some payment info and we could make it unlimited. But
We don't need to do it.
I don't know that the performance would be good with unlimited. But
I don't know if
Right
we.
now, though.
Yeah. I think if we got up to 30, that might start hitting some performance limits on the free tier. I think it would start to run
I
poorly.
did check it, and they increased the bandwidth and a bunch of other things on the free tier. So
Cool.
I think
free tier?
I think it would actually work.
Yep.
Damn,
The
I gotta
paid,
check this
the
Normcore
paid
out.
tier is like $50 a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's honestly
And
not.
then
That's
it-
pretty reasonable for an indie dev.
And then it removes the 30 user limit and increases the bandwidth.
Yeah.
But the bandwidth would be but when we're all talking, we're using bandwidth, obviously.
Yeah.
So that would be the thing that we're gonna hit before anything.
There are ways to kind of split that out.
You're all funny.
There goes your data.
Hey, this could be a short meeting. I'm good.
Getting there.
Do you have a meter? Can you see the bandwidth in real time that we're using?
I don't know. I'd have to log into the.
I think
to
in
the
editor
Normcore
you
manager.
can, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried to really debug that.
They would just.
Yeah, this is working great.
So the only downside really is that this isn't a finished production application, so
Yeah.
it doesn't have moderation. It doesn't have, lots of things that would be nice to have, but it's a proof of concept mostly, and it does work pretty well, and it looks nice. There's absolutely zero real-time lights in the scene, and that's the killer for performance on mobile devices. So that's something everybody should do. I will say that this was baked with Bakery, which is a plugin that anyone who's doing any lighting in Unity should just go buy. If you're using Unity, just go buy it.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Don't bother. And it's better if you have NVIDIA RTX cards. It's faster. I believe it's Windows specific right now. But it is a billion times faster and a billion times more stable and a billion times more.
You know what baking is?
You basically get a more stable representation of all your lighting. Like lighting, sometimes Unity will just bake lighting forever, and then you get crap at the end, like it doesn't even work.
I found there to be a lot less artifacting with the lighting with Bakery as well, like less lighting errors that you can see.
It does a really good job also of setting the tiles for atlasing. It has its own proprietary method of doing that, and in Unity that's really nice, and that's something that the built-in rendering doesn't have. So super useful. I don't know what time it is, but
Is Normcore a library for Unity?
so Normcore is a third-party network transport layer for Unity, I think right now specifically. And they built their own system on top of the Google Cloud. And then they just basically charge a monthly fee. There's actually a free tier. This is right now running in the free tier. TeamVR applications. And then, as we mentioned earlier, I don't know if you heard, but there's a mobile option, so you can use it with 2D, like 2D platforms. So you could use like an iPhone or an iPad or something like that, and have like a window where they could look around and see all the VR people, but then they're just like a 2D person that's kind of floating around in the space. So it would give an opportunity for you to have non-VR and VR people kind of mixed together in the same space.
Okay. But for the free
And then
version,
they handle the... What's that?
I was gonna say, for the free version, that means you can only have 30 people.
So what you do is you create an app ID, and you can have multiple rooms and whatnot. But the app ID is limited to 30 users. But we could have like portals in here that would go to different rooms, and then we could all like move between different spaces, kind of a thing. But there would just be a max of 30 people that could be within that one application ID. But you can create multiple app IDs. It's just that then they're separate applications. You know,
that sounds a nightmare. Yeah.
But it's at least really good for just experimenting with it and getting a feel for what it can and can't do.
And it's not too difficult to set up from scratch either, compared to other networking solutions.
And I think one of the biggest challenges with this specific one was that this was done like a long time ago, at least
a little over a year
ago. At least a year ago. Yeah. It's been updated a bit since then, but the initial one was like a year ago. And at the time, they didn't have really good integration with like interaction systems. Like Matt had to do a bunch of work to get VRIF to work with Normcore. It just didn't work on the box, you know. I believe now that VRF has the interaction with inside of things that work with, whatever tools you're using. So it's not just like it works free out of the box, but it's a lot better, at least a year after the fact than it was.
Totally.
Where's Zach?
Yeah.
How many
Seems
people are
like-
coming, Zach?
Into this space, no more than 13 have accepted the app, and there's a few on Twitch, which can't exactly see.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Marty will give a little report here.
7, 8, 9.
It looks like Zach Chapman still needs an invite.
Tell him to read what's on Eventbrite and do it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm watching that email. I'll take care of him.
Your mouth moves really strangely when you type.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll hold the headset closer.
It's like you're speaking like chipmunk.
Well, I've got a mechanical keyboard, so it's really loud.
It does a surprisingly good job of mouth movement.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I was typing to Zach Chapman, but he can also hear what I'm saying because he's watching the Twitch. So that was pointless. He's lurking.
Nice.
Can you go in the car, Lester?
Yeah. If you have the collision, you can get in there.
Yeah, it doesn't push you out of the way, so yeah, you can.
If you get into a position where it's going to rotate over top of you, then you can go inside. But
Oh, okay. Oh, cool.
Did you try to make someone rotate when they get on the platform? Like attach the person to the...
At the time, VRIF did not have very good moving platform support, so no. But now I think that would be possible with VRIF.
I mean, it would be freaky. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because you have to parent them to the object that's rotating.
Yeah, I know some work
and
recently has been done to improve like moving platform support. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to get that working, but it just wasn't worth spending the time on.
Yeah.
And if you notice, there's shiny stuff. Like you never see shiny stuff in VR.
Yeah,
You know.
So
Like,
shiny.
you don't really even see light probes usually.
I don't understand why they're the bomb.
light probes and reflection probes like instantly make a scene look so much better.
I don't know how you can have baked lighting and not have light probes. Like it just.
Yeah,
If you have any real-time objects, any dynamic objects that are inside of a scene that's lit with baked lighting, you need them. Like it's the only way to do
Yeah.
that. Short of having real-time lights, which you should never have in mobile, because it just is a performance hog. So
yep.
Okay, so describe the mechanism to using a light probe to me. I'm not familiar with it.
in Unity,
Sure.
so in Unity, you basically create what's called a light probe group, and then each light probe uses spherical harmonics to store light, what's baked from a bunch of different angles, and then there's basically a bunch of math it uses to interpolate what light should hit an object as it gets near the closest configuration of probes that are near it. It uses like a 3-probe group to cast a shaded light across the surface of a dynamic object.
Yeah.
So it's just a lookup essentially. So you have to manually build a grid of light probes in the scene, and when you bake your lighting, it then will also sample the lighting from the perspective of each position of the light probes, and it'll bake that into the light probe position. And then the lighting engine in Unity, on any dynamic object, you can set it to be lit by spherical harmonics, and then that will use the light probe data to do that.
So there's a bunch
so
of
in
light
this
probes.
case, we
Go ahead.
Yep,
so
everywhere
yeah,
throughout the level.
You can't see them,
Yeah.
but all throughout the level, there's a grid of probes essentially that were baked in the editor. And as any dynamic object moves within them, it figures out the closest 3 in like a particular pattern
Yeah.
to use as light sources.
So it's essentially a bunch of sort of areas.
When you look at it in the editor, it just looks like a sphere.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the sphere is shaded. Yeah, it's just a position in space
yeah.
that's got an array of light of spherical harmonics attached to it.
It uses the 3
Yeah,
that you're
to look
closest to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So what it does behind the scenes is it bakes an efficient model of the 3 points that are create the appropriate lighting model to shade an object essentially, and that has to be pre-calculated. You actually can't even modify that at runtime, which creates problems when you're doing dynamic scenes and things like that. If you're trying to do procedural content, light probes are not exactly a great mesh with procedural content. But
I did see some third-party asset that like can interpolate between sets of light probes to do like a day-night cycle.
You can do that, and I've done that manually, and it works fine. But you can't move the light probes.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is position all the light probes first, bake the spherical harmonic data, and I can't remember the exact term for it, but it uses a tri-grid to the lighting, like the lighting data for an object. And that uses an algorithm that they basically run in the editor, and it's somewhat CPU intensive, so it can't be run. They basically marked it so it can't be used in runtime.
So
at that point, and then light probes are in world space. So if you merge in like another scene and anything like that, like the positions are global, so you can't move them. So they work really good if you have a static scene and everything's just baked. But they kind of cause a bunch of problems if you start to like deviate from that pattern. They did, I think, in one of the recent updates to Unity, have the ability to, like, if you load a scene there's like a function you can call that will recalculate some light probe data, but it has to be like appended, and it has to be based relative to the scene positions, because it's still stuck with global coordinates and stuff like that. But you can do some really cool stuff with it, and it gives the effect that the lighting is dynamic, but it's all baked.
Yeah. So light probes are used commonly in other engines as well. Like Unreal Engine does light probes as well, except it's just kind of more hidden in Unity.
They call it volumetric light maps.
Yep.
Which is sort of, I guess, what it is, but
Yeah. But you don't have to place those manually, which is kind of nice.
yeah, they do it procedurally. Their engines
Yeah.
does it. We use like a plugin, because in Unity normally with light probes you have to place them all manually. Like their built-in editor interface for light probes is like you create a volume, and then you can create a probe, and then you have to grab it and move its transform in space, and then you have to do that to fill the whole scene full of light probes manually. Which, depending on how much content you have and what you're trying to do, it can be a lot of work. You know, there are some tools. There's like Magic. What's it called? Magic
light probes.
Light probes, which uses their own proprietary algorithms to like figure out where there's lighting changes, and then it will cluster light probes around transitions from like bright to dark, color to different color, and so forth. And then that is an automatic way of positioning all the light probes. And then when you do your bake, it will transform the light samples from those positions into the probes, and that is a good way. It's like a really nice way of getting just an optimized set of light probes. There is like a free tool that's just a grid, so you can just create a volume, and you can just say it's 10 light probes wide by 20 light probes tall, and then it'll just fill that full of probes automatically. And that works, but it's not super efficient, but it does work fine. Like, we've done a few projects with just grids in it. Yeah, and the end result it looks good, and you can't really tell the difference, but it's technically probably more probes than you would need if you were to do it in an optimized way.
The reflections on the car are being done with probes too.
So that's done with a reflection probe. So that's basically just like in a normal shader, you would use a cube map, right? Which is just a spherical image or a cube, six-sided image that then is used to calculate the reflections around a shiny object. You had the option, depending on the shader you're using, to still use a cube map, but in this case, Unity has reflection probes, and if you use standard shader or a shader that supports the reflection data from the Unity shader pipeline, it will then assign the closest reflection probe to the object as it's being rendered. So then, therefore, you could have like a bunch of sampled reflection points in the scene. As dynamic objects move between them, it'll switch to the appropriate reflection probe reflection. In this case, there's just one.
But probes are baked.
They are baked. Yep.
So
you can do real-time probes. They're expensive. You probably wouldn't want to do it on mobile, but you could have an update rate where they would sample, and then objects that are moving could potentially show up in them, or whatever. It depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they show only static objects. But.
No one really notices.
What's happening with the car is the good old the procedural equivalent, or the equivalent of a good old-fashioned reflection map.
Basically, exactly.
There's this sphere. There's this sphere with image data in it that's being reflected off the normal vectors of the model.
And just like how light probes work, where as we move around the scene, any dynamic objects, or all of the humanoids are dynamic objects.
Well, that's just cool.
If you move into a shadow, you'll get shadow. Well, with reflection probes, if you had a bunch of them scattered throughout the scene, as you moved through, if you were shiny, the reflection would also update to match whatever the closest probe is to you.
How's it going?
Okay, cool.
I
So
don't know if
it's just a way to
I don't know if I'll
create
change my. I'm trying to get
that's
stand left
palatable,
controller to work.
but still have it be baked.
Classic.
You can hit B or
Otherwise-
Y to
Patrick,
set
go
your
get in
name.
the shadow.
But yeah, without two hands, I'm not sure.
Where?
Gotta have two hands.
Right in front
A
of
little
us.
usability limitation.
It doesn't look dark to me.
Man, have you heard anything back from Zach too?
As far as I know, he's lurking. I don't know if he's going to join or not.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything else.
Yeah, I just pasted the link into Twitch, so we can probably get rolling.
Okay, cool.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
If everybody wants to gather around here, we'll kick off. I guess this spot's as good as
Where
any.
do you want
like
to
this spot?
speak, Matt?
I'm just staying here for starting at least.
Yeah. And I'll do a quick kickoff for everybody. Marty, we got you there. Are you able to communicate back?
Everybody's taking their helmets off.
There it is.
It's always funny when the person puts on their suit.
Yeah.
Hey, Marty, are you muted or can you talk? Yeah, that's good. Looks like the delay's longer than normal, like maybe a minute almost. But yeah, I think you won't really have to.
It must
I was just
vary
making sure you're
person
ready
to
to go.
person a little bit.
Oh, that setting didn't work? Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get rolling then here. Hey, everybody, I'm Zach. Looks like everybody figured out how to set their name and set their
Hello,
color.
Zach.
And when you want to be annoying, we're going to go with color changes. So I'm the power-up star from Super Mario Brothers right now. And being that this is a custom app, not made for public consumption, there's no... there's no kicking or muting that we can do, so be good. And I know you all will. And tell your neighbors if they're not being good. If you do have to, if you do get some background noise, somebody's mowing the lawn or something, you can use the mute from the Oculus menu. And we're all going to test that out right now. There's two different menus in play here. Oculus lost their minds and changed the menu that we use every day. If you're on a version 28 style menu, you have a gear on the right when you hit your Oculus button. And if you're on a newer menu, you don't, but you can click your clock. And
So on your right Oculus controller, you're going to hit the menu button.
Yep, the Oculus button is the recess button on your right controller. And then click on your clock or click on your gear. Right in the center there is a mute button that is system-wide on the headset. And you just, while you're out there, go ahead and look at your power setting and see if you need to find a plug-in before the night's over. This probably will use a whole battery. You can charge while you're in this app, at least on a Quest 2, I can attest to that. It doesn't do a full drain by any means. And I think that's all I had to say. If you got some good ideas for anybody here in town that's got a cool project, let me know. Always looking for speakers and like to feature local people as much as possible. So yeah, and this is an unusual thing, and it was a lot of work. So thanks, Matt, for doing all the extra steps to pull this together. It's really cool.
I have to thank 3M. Normally we don't necessarily get to show a lot of this kind of stuff, but this is just something that Matt Foreman worked on as like a proof of concept. And when I asked if we could reuse this for a meeting, and they were like, "Sure, go ahead." So awesome for that.
Yeah, and
otherwise, they would have had to retheme it all. That wouldn't have been as much fun.
Or take the obscenity out of the other scene.
Yeah.
And also went into the unknown to distribute something through an App Lab beta channel. So we can talk about that a little bit, or Matt can talk about that a little bit. I think it turned out really good once we figured out everything.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how we were going to get all these people in here without having you all sideload via SideQuest. So it actually worked out good. I think we're all here and awesome.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing I'll say is let us know if things start glitching out for you. This is using the free tier of Normcore, and it's working awesome. I think the audio is better than Altspace.
Yeah, definitely.
So there is a distance-based attenuation. So if you move further away, voices will get quieter.
Yep.
But other than that, we don't have any way to control volumes or anything like that. So it's just using stock functionality. But
yeah. All right. Take it away, Matt.
Awesome. So this project started out its life as, like I said, as a proof of concept. We were working on a project for 3M, and we started an experiment with Normcore, mostly Matt Foreman, who's right here. I should say that right now, most of what you see here was actually built by Matt Foreman, with content that was pulled out of various 3M applications that we've built before. I am currently the steward of all these things, but again, a lot of the stuff that is here was mostly built by Matt Foreman. So basically, we decided to take, while we were working on a project for 3M, the urban mobility project. It was like a demonstration of like traffic safety as a result of like road markings and like safety implements for like bike lanes and things like that. And if you look around the scene on the edge, you can see some of that stuff. There's like bollards, and that green line that flickers in the distance is like a bike path. I was playing around with needs. Instead of using like the existing meeting softwares that are out there, like where there's like a generic thing, you have generic avatars, you meet, but this is like an example of something where everything could have been custom, right? And so we were able to pull in like the vehicles and the markings and like, assets from various other 3M things, pull them into this space, and then experiment with getting the multiplayer aspects of it to work with voice and things like that. So we settled on using Normcore, mostly I'm guessing because we just wanted to experiment with it. That was kind of the catalyst behind it. Just because it's a fairly efficient and easy way to add, voice and network transport. So the fact that my hands are moving, and all of you can see that is the type of stuff that's being handled right now by the Normcore SDK. As Zach mentioned, this is the free tier. The free tier is locked at like 30 users. Awesome. I'm not sure if anyone else heard that. And then there is like an overall bandwidth limitation as well. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but that encompasses all the data that's transferred for transforms, like my hands, and then the data that's used to transport the voice.
So we should all wave our hands at the same time?
Yeah.
Is the voice peer-to-peer, or does it get mixed in the server?
I believe it's server side. So there is like a light audio engine in the SDK that I believe uses Vorbis, and it basically slices up the audio and sends it out as a stream to the Google Cloud, and that is aggregated across all of the clients. And you can tell when if bandwidth starts to get shitty, the space between the packets will spread out, and it'll either get choppy or sound like a robot. And that's just the lack of detail in the audio data packets as they're being sent. They do have different tiers. There's a paid tier that's got unlimited users and a data bandwidth cap. And then there is a unlimited where you get unlimited users, but then you also pay for how much data you use on a monthly basis. So that's kind of their current pricing model across their application. So
what's the cost for step 2?
I can't remember if it's $50 or $100 a month. Okay. And I'd have to look that up to be 100% sure, but it's in that one of those two numbers, and which I think is pretty good. I've used Photon. I think Photon for it's 500 for 500 users a month on Photon. It's like $100 a month or something like that. So this is unlimited compared to that, but they also Photon chunks out their voice separately from their network transport. So you have to then pay a different fee for voice on top of that. At that point, you'd probably be better off using Oculus Voice because it's
Yeah.
free.
Matt, sorry to interrupt. I just looked up the pricing. Normcore Pro is $49 a month, and Unlimited is $49 a month plus whatever extra data you use.
So whatever you use above the data that's provided by Normcore Pro.
Yeah, and I know they do offer enterprise solutions that you can, contact them for, and even host it on your own server if you pay a lot of money.
Yeah. So their idea is that they're trying to make a generic solution, but if you had enterprise needs and you needed a custom instance, they could accommodate that as well. It would require working directly with them and negotiating something, but it's a small team. It's like 4 people, so it's pretty crazy. So part of this process too is like when we were building this space, we were getting pretty involved with optimizing a fairly aggressive piece of content for Quest, and so we wanted to do that same kind of level of optimization in this space as well. So like all of the lighting that's in here is baked. The buildings in the distance are actually 3D buildings in the source content, but they're baked into the skybox with fog, so it creates this illusion that there's content around you, but it's really just a big sphere with a texture on it, and at that level further in the distance.
So how big of an image in the sphere? How much data is in there, you think? Because it looks great.
I think it's just a 4K texture.
It looks great.
3M.
Yeah. So that app had a physical 3D city, and then at each of the vantage points that you could travel to within the contents, we had set up reflection probes, essentially, that could then capture the city and the skybox and bake it out into a static texture. So that way, as you moved around, we had a position relative skybox that added more realism to the place, rather than a generic skybox that would have just been like at not quite the right position for wherever you were. And then we were able to selectively disable buildings, essentially based on that point of view, so that when you looked around, you would see the distance buildings and they had fog in them and everything, and it gave the realistic look. But then we didn't have to render any of that geometry because it's all baked into the skybox. And we were able to automate that pretty well, and it worked really good for the content. So that got pulled into here just to add like another element of interest to the space. And then, do some, like, the lighting is a little, it's kind of interesting. It's like kind of dynamic, so that it has like nice long shadows and stuff like that. And again, that was just to kind of like make the space look more appealing and kind of make it look more interesting than, again, like a generic meeting space where there just is either no lighting at all or just really generic lighting or dark, which is a lot of what you see commonly in spaces. So then I think the next thing that we wanted to do was just like figure out a way to do some amount of example of interaction. And because the other content is pixel farm memed, we're not going to show that, but it did have like basketballs you could play with and tic-tac-toe and things like a bunch of small objects you could pick up and throw. So we ended up with this helmet, which you've all found and it's been thrown around everywhere. And so we were experimenting with
It was a great toss, but
with doing a networked interaction. So the fact that you can pick it up, you can put it on, everyone else sees what you're doing with it. That's all done over the network, rather than it just being like something that's just only you see, right? This is a type of network interaction. You can put it on and off, and we didn't create a welder and have it like darken, but that's something that, again, because this is a custom space, we could do something like that, which would, in many cases that would be possible in an off-the-shelf meeting solution, where you just get the features that exist. So then, like, we ended up using, I think, VRIF is what we used for the interaction system, and again, like a year ago when this was done. It was a bit of work to get that to function properly with Normcore. They were compatible, but there was like logic missing to make the two be wired together. So Matt Foreman did most of that work actually to get, you know, the made a custom interactable for that, tying it to Normcore's transform system so that the transform positions were all synced. Syncing the locking, like when you put the, you know, when you pick up the object, who have kind of network thing is like when an object is moving, right? In this scenario where we're doing, there isn't like a server that's controlling a simulation. All that's happening here is that the positions of things are being synced, and so when you take ownership of it, your device is then responsible for updating the position data of that object, sending it out to the multiplayer servers, the network servers, in this case Normcore, and then all the clients then update based on that. And that's the reason why ownership exists, like so that there's one central thing that's in control of an object at one time, because otherwise there, you know, a bunch of things you have to fight over where stuff is. So there's like one source of truth, and that's the owner, and the owner is responsible for telling all the other clients where that thing is. And there's weird things that happen as a result of that. And if it doesn't sync properly, like if, you know, it's not happening now, but when Zach and I were testing this out earlier, if I was holding out the helmet in my hand, he could grab it, and on his version, he would see it attached to his hand, and he would run away with it. And then when I would let go, I would see it fly across the room over to where Zach was, you know, because in my local version, the transform, you know, the ownership says it's me, and it's updating to where my position is. But as soon as I let go, it's like, okay, who owns this now? And it somehow decided it was Zach, and then it tried to sync the transform to the other client's transfer position. And so there's a whole bunch of effort required when you're creating interactable objects to debug them and make sure that they properly work over network, you know, stuff. And that's terrifying and awesome.
Yeah. For any devs planning to use, or I will, you know, interactable objects, it's something with the transform being reparented messes it up for Normcore. So it's something I ran into, and just save you guys some time if you use Normcore.
What owner does the physics? So I know who does the processing for the physics?
So right now, my client is processing the physics. So if I throw this on the floor, my Quest calculated that, and when it comes to rest, then the ownership goes away. If you'd pick it up, then it'd be your client doing the physics.
And so in theory, what's happening is that it's only physics for Matt. He's seeing the end result of the physics calculations. What you are seeing is the synced frame rate of transform updates across the. Yeah. So you're seeing an interpolated version of that, and that's because like Unity's networking system is not deterministic, so it can't sync the network simulation over the multiplayer transforms. So I think that one of the newer ones that works with dots, one of those newer physics engine is deterministic. So there's a potential of doing more network physics kind of stuff in the future. But if you're just using PhysX, the normal Unity physics engine, that, you know, that's not the case. So something to be aware of. So and then there's a few different ways to interpolate the update of the objects, like the transforms positions, and we're just using straight up interpolation right now. It's not using any prediction. So if the packets get lost, weird things happen. You see, like, it might go straight and then deviate to the right, because that's just, you know, the transform data was some of it was missing, or there's a drastic change due to the physics calculations, and it just didn't, you know, properly update at the right rate. So simple stuff works fine. The more complicated you try and get, you could run into problems. And you might even see like stepping, you know, kind of stuff, depending on the update rate and things like that, the speed of your internet connection, things like that. And then we ended up using a lot of a lot of the rendering technologies and stuff in Unity to try and make this performant, but also look good. So this is all baked lighting. There's no real-time lights. We used, like I mentioned earlier, we used Bakery, which is a plugin in the Unity Asset Store that does CUDA accelerated light map generation. It's also RTX accelerated, so if you have a nice RTX GPU, it's like about 20-30% faster to render. It does a ton of optimization of the atlasing of light maps and stuff like that Unity doesn't do by itself. And so it has a tendency to just work and look really good, whereas the normal light map system in Unity does not have those same outcomes. At least it's not guaranteed. It's still not perfect, and we've worked through various issues with Bakery as well, specific versions we've had to install. But as a whole, the process is like a billion times faster and higher quality than the default light mapping system. This on my 2080 takes 10 minutes to render all the shadows and all the global illumination, which I think is really fast because I've had projects that were less complicated than this. On the Unity one, take like 20 hours. So it's if you haven't gone down that rabbit hole, it's super fun. So
yeah, they use AI assisted denoising to speed up the baking process.
That's part of why the speed, because they don't have to use as many samples to do the rendering, and then they can just use the AI processing to smooth out all the lighting, and they use the GPU to calculate all that, so it's significantly faster. And they do have a separate plugin that's Bakery real time, and it lets you pre-visualize what the lighting is going to look like before it's even rendered. And it's not a perfect one-to-one, but it does a pretty good job of giving you an idea of what it's going to look like. And that's just a progressive render, so it just kind of like renders increasingly in detail, and then it denoises it in the viewport. So you can just move the camera and look around, and you can see like where the shadow is going to be, like what is the lighting level going to be. It previews global illumination, so it gives you really good feedback for that. I don't think even Bakery is that expensive. I think it's like $50. Like that's not a crazy expensive thing. And then I think can't remember if it's $29 or if it's $49 for the real-time preview, but something in that ballpark. So the tools are not super expensive if it's something you need to do to get better quality. And then because there's no real-time lights, we have dynamic objects. We also baked out all the lighting into light probe data, so that all the dynamic objects can just do interpolated lighting based on that. And so you can see like if people are like in shadows, like Zach over here, he's dark. His face is all dark. And if you walk next to the trailer, Mr. Gaff gets dark. And that's all fake. That's all fake with light probes. And Bakery works with all we do have over there video, so that was again an experiment they were trying to do. I don't know if we should move over there. It might be annoying through the Twitch talk, but maybe we can get a different perspective.
Bye, Marty.
Come on.
Take a seat.
It's weird. Really flat. It's the same monitor. We're looking through like anything changed.
Well, it is texture sampled through an interpolator, so it's got some optimization done to it. It's like the comb filter on your TV, right? So it's a GPU. So we were trying to again just experiment with, if this is a meeting space, you would maybe want to watch a video. So this is an example of like what the quality of the video would look like, sitting in the meeting space. I believe this is just using the stock Unity video player, and it's just on a render texture on a quad.
Advancing the
And then currently it's not like network synced, so we're probably all right now seeing completely different points in the video.
Yeah.
And different audio.
Just like black for me.
today.
Yep, and then it'll restart. And but it wouldn't be too bad to sync it. It would probably just be a matter of having whoever's the master owner of the space just have a property that just updates the current position of the video. And then when you zone into the room, all it would do is just start you at that same point. And it wouldn't sync it perfectly, but it would just start you at that point. So then at least all the clients would be in the same relative space, so that it would loop and it would play to the same for every person. If you were to sync the exact position, like and interpolate that, it would probably screw up the audio because it would be like stuttery. And I think that just syncing the time frame generally would actually be enough that you could have a conversation about what you're watching and you'd all be based on the same approximate data. So that's just something to consider.
Same with like 3D models that have like an ambient animation, for example, just like something rotating, or like they could use that same method you described.
Yeah. And that's just because depending on what you're doing, everything has to be synced. And certain things can be on a clocked update rate sync. Like even that car rotating over there, it's rotating differently for every single person. Because it's updating in a position and it's based on when you zone in where it happens to be. So
that's the same with the wind generator.
Yep.
Totally. Any animation.
It's unless there was
a syncing mechanism in place, it would be slightly different.
Yeah.
And ramp up the pace of
Can you create
by interacting with you in a revolutionary way?
Cones
Together,
of silence?
we can rapidly evolve the world
Like,
of automated design and manufacturing.
Here you could create this as a cone of silence so that you wouldn't hear the ambient and you could just...
advance your
Totally.
business to
I mean,
new levels of
all the
productivity
audio system
and
that's in here is just
success.
Unity stuff. So there's an audio source over here.
Advancing the industry.
We all have an audio
Advancing
meter
mobility.
and an audio source.
Advancing the
an audio
world.
source and a microphone and a what is it? Ears and mouth basically, so that we can talk and hear.
Today,
and you could
open
have
the door to
a trigger
whole
volume
new
around the
world of
space, and you could
possibilities.
adjust any of those sound
It's
data
about
based on
advancing your
proximity to that
business
space.
needs and the automotive
That kind of stuff.
industry.
That's one of the nice
As we
things about this
tackle
being a custom
widespread
space. You
change
could
in
do
mobility, vehicle
whatever you
systems,
want,
and
kind
architecture.
of thing. And you could genericize it and make it into like a more generic meeting
breakthrough to
application if you wanted to. If you
21st
want to build something
century
custom and compete with
The 3M
spatial
Automotive
or
Material
whatever the
Science
other
Academy.
50 other VR dating apps.
Engage,
Just
VR,
science.
and whatever.
Until we make it improve the world.
But most of those are still also
And that only happens when we put our minds
like
together.
trying to be super generic and like even to the point where like you
Here,
couldn't
under
like
one roof, we
build a
invite you to
custom,
share our innovative spirit and passionate
couch like
curiosity.
this in their space. They have whatever
We
the
want to
features they
hear
have,
about
and
the
that's what you
twists,
get.
turns, and
They have
bumps ahead
predefined
on your
spaces
roadway.
and whatnot. And this is just like you said, Matt. This is just like a 1080p video, right? It's not. It's nothing crazy. But it looks really good because it's playing on
learn and problem solve together.
it's playing in the video player and it's on a render texture and it's being sampled. And it's enough resolution that
Bringing science and
in the headsets that we're in,
together
it looks
to
pretty
create
good.
products that
What's
change
great?
the way
What
we
would you do
live.
if you wanted to do a
In the
PowerPoint?
automotive industry, we haven't just been
So we do not have
but
right now a
trendsetting
web
for more than 100 years.
renderer in this
From
space,
bonding and joining,
but there's a pretty good one that's on the Unity
vehicle
Asset Store.
electrification,
And
NVH,
what's the name of it, Matt?
and human-machine
for it?
interfaces.
It's just called
We're
WebView.
leading the way forward.
So that one is basically
now,
it's kind of
we want to
expensive,
make new inroads,
but it
push
supports
the
like every
accelerator,
platform. It supports
and
mobile
ramp up the
devices,
pace of
desktop,
innovation
whatever.
by
It
interacting
works
with
so
you
well,
in a
and the support is so
revolutionary
good.
way. Together,
think it's
we
$300
can
or
rapidly
$400.
evolve the world
Yeah.
of
And it
automotive
depends on
design and
platforms. Like if you
manufacturing.
get, there's like I think it's
As
$300 for like the
collaborative
iOS
partners.
Android bundle,
and
and
in the
$300
process,
for
advance your
something
business
like that
to
for
new
the
levels of
PC
productivity and success.
desktop platforms.
Advancing
But
collaboration.
it also does full
Advancing
HTML
the
rendering,
industry.
has sorts of
Advancing
video, HTML5 video,
Advancing
JavaScript
Yeah, you can-
interop.
You can load
So
YouTube
you can-
videos with it.
So you can have C# code that calls JavaScript functions in the web view, and interact with JavaScript
Today,
code that's in there and so
you've
forth.
opened the door
It's super
to a whole
powerful.
new world of
There's been like a bunch
possibilities.
of different ones over the years that have been in the Asset Store, and it seems like after a bit they just die because I think it's a lot of work to maintain a Chromium fork, and have it keep it running forever in all kinds of modern platforms. But I think that's one of the other ones were super cheap, and I think that was their downfall. Is like it's sort of almost a one-time purchase, and if you don't charge enough for it, like if everyone owns it, right? There was like the joke that there was a long time ago there was the company that made unbreakable drumsticks, and then like when everyone bought them, then nobody bought any more, and they kind of went out of business. So it's that same kind of model where it's like you have to price whatever you're doing in a way where it's sustainable, otherwise you can't really stay in business. And so and it's something that is super important, I think, for being able to have pull in web content into this kind of space. And that's how you would do something like your PowerPoint, where you want to have you can render Google Slides right in there because it's a web browser that's running inside of the engine and it's doing that work.
That's sick. That would be sick.
That would be synced because we're all watching it from an external source.
Right. Okay. So if you were going to load in like a PDF or something, that would have to go up to like a cloud, and then the content would need to be distributed to each client to be viewed. How would you structure that, Matt?
Well, there's a few different ways. I think when we were playing with the new stuff in Altspace, they basically have you take ownership of the screen, and then your computer is basically streaming data to the screen, and everyone sees it. So that's one way.
Right.
You could have, whoever's running the presentation do something that would cause all, send a network packet out that would cause all the clients to download a piece of content, and then you would basically be puppeting all the clients. Like when you change slides, it would just tell their renderer basically to update the next slide and stuff like that. So that's more of a something that would require communication over the network for it to happen, rather than just a stream.
Are there any like ready-made services designed for that, or does that get into more kind of custom cloud server stuff that you're doing?
Well, you could open the PDF in the web browser.
That's where I thought you were going.
That's an option. It definitely would work.
So having to deal with Altspace for a couple of years here, they started with the Puppet version, and then those dang kids found out it was really fun to seen things. Here, under the premise of you trust the people that are here, then you're just worried about how secure it is on the internet. If there's naked URLs to files that are proprietary going around.
But if this was a custom meeting space and you were just in here doing a thing, that level of problem wouldn't probably happen because it's not just random people that are in here interacting.
You could embed some kind of password or security token in the client. Update it.
If you're dealing with the general public, it's always an adventure. So you always have to take more steps to limit what things can be done spontaneously in the space. Trying to think what else would be interesting. Any questions? Matt or I can kind of field anything.
I just want to say goodbye. I have to cut out early.
Take off.
Bye, Patrick.
This is awesome.
Thanks for fixing your heights so I don't have to look up at you.
Fair enough. Anytime.
He'd rather look down on you.
I know.
He's like floating up in the sky. It's like, how did you do that?
There's no flying in here. That's the only critique. If I have
teleporting. You just got to be creative. You got a window?
I'm on it. Hold on, I'm going to go up some stairs real quick. All right, I'll see you guys later.
See you
later.
Bye.
Today, you open the door to a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah, what else is kind of unique in here? You said there was custom work for the solar panel?
So the original model for that was like an enormous amount of geometry. And so that had to actually be optimized quite a bit in there. And you will notice that like if you try and sneak inside things, like there's no interior in the truck, there's no interior in the car, there's no there was like a million things about the solar panel, a million pieces of geometry, and it was really simplified down to just this, as primitive as it could be, basically.
Well, and you also had a affordable diffuse reflection you did.
Yeah, so this is just, it's still reflecting the reflection probe stuff, but it's just adjusted so that the reflection is super blurry. Just to kind of like make it look more like a solar panel, because if it was too reflective, it just looks like a mirror, And that was like one of the things where we were trying to like pull in content to kind of like, in the 3M world, right? These are all things that 3M makes. And so Matt like did a bunch of work to like make these little plaques that like showed like, material breakdowns and like put in the geometry of objects that go along with them.
Yeah, there's a plaque for any like object of interest in here. I'll be right back, Matt.
Sure.
So.
Yep. And so again, that was supporting the whole this is a custom experience, and like I don't know if anyone's been to any of the 3M experience centers, but they do have a bunch of like spaces where they have rooms full of physical objects similar to this, where like you can come up and interact with, a sponge or a ankle brace or different kinds of products that are built with like 3M materials, 3M technologies, 3M whatever. And so they invite people from all over the world to these experience centers to like go on a tour and like see all kinds of things. And so one of the thoughts behind this was that virtual versions of things could be in here, and it could be a tour that could go on, and we could kind of walk through stuff. And so
if we wanted to train some solar installers, we could have people just come in, grab these panels, move them, put them in.
Totally. And then the idea that this is a custom space would support all that. Like we could have custom interactions where there could be a pile of parts and tools, and you could put something together. It could be a training
up just like we picked up the helmet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, extended battery installed. You now have longer battery life. It was already installed. Anyway, it must have kicked over to it. So that's one other thing about this space is it has had zero effort in optimizing its like performance. So if it's sucking your battery down, I'm super sorry, but we just didn't put any effort into optimizing this towards anything. It might be actually cranked up to like a higher CPU, GPU level too. I didn't even look at the settings when we did the deployment. But
I think when we were in here the first time, I was level 2 for both.
Level 2, which isn't terrible. It probably could be lower than that. I don't think it's anything crazy. It could probably be 1 and 2. Probably it's not using a lot of CPU. Plus that would affect the networking, but I don't think it would.
It just got dropped.
You got dropped?
It was weird.
Tell me to set my username.
That's funny. Yeah, my headset is dying, so I think I gotta go.
All right.
This is great. Thank you very much. This is just amazing. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Scott.
Thanks. So, Matt, do you want to say a few words about the app lab, getting your app to be accepted?
So this was originally deployed via SideQuest, obviously, like everything else. Now that App Lab exists, which anyone not know what App Lab is? Anyone? Everyone knows what App Lab is. Awesome. Well, I'll mention it a little bit just for the folks on Twitch, if there's anyone out there. Normal Oculus Quest deployment requires approval. So there was that whole long chain where, yes, where if you wanted to make an app and deploy it in the store, you couldn't, because you had to like go through the approval process, and they were super gatekeepery about, controlling what was in there. And in the recent past, they fully released App Lab, and App Lab is basically it's full Oculus Store deployment minus anyone seeing it that it's there. That's effectively the best description that I can give you. And so you can, of course, send a link to anyone. So if you publish an app through App Lab, it's fully explorable. Like if you know exactly where to go, you can go there. It has, media, photos, videos, things like that, and then someone can purchase it even, or can access it for free if it's a free app. And during development, there's no curation, so you can just have beta people come in, you can deploy it in that way, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. So we created a beta channel, set up a new App Lab app, published this app to it. It does some automated testing, so it basically does a malware scan, and then it just scans your app to see if there's any kind of known exploitation kind of stuff in there. If it passes those initial things, which takes about 5 to 10 minutes after the upload, then you end up with just a normal application that you can then send. You can invite people by their email address to have access to it for your beta channel. And then when they click the email, which you all went through that exact process, right, to get here. You got a link in your email, and then the app was added to your account. And then after a certain point, you could just go to your applications and your list of your app library on your device, and it would show up there, and you could just click it, and it would install. And then subsequently, if we were to update that, go ahead.
Patrick did a speed test today. It was like instant or less than 10 seconds.
Before it showed up in the app list?
Yep.
So the initial one that we did was the first time, and it took extra time to get all the data in the CDNs. So that one took longer, because initially when we did it, it was like it didn't show up right away. So we were trying to figure out if that was going to be the experience that you all would have when you went to do it. So then once you have that, you just click it and it installs. And then likewise, if we were to post an update, the next time you launch the app, it would say, hey, there's an updated version, and it would install. And so that's great because it doesn't need SideQuest. It also does not require your device to be in developer mode, whereas SideQuest does. So that means people who are not Oculus developers, who have not gone through the work to use SideQuest at all, can still install that fairly easily. And then since it is a store app, it has an app icon, and it has more it doesn't get buried under that unknown users or unknown applications?
Unknown sources.
Unknown sources, yeah. So it just shows up with the rest of your apps like a normal app, which is kind of nice. And then there are features that only work when you deploy that way. So if you were to hit the Oculus button on your controller and you get the overlay menu, the overlay menu only works if your app is deployed through the App Store. Otherwise, it just blocks the whole screen. Because that's a setting that's in your manifest, and the application has to be published through the app through an Oculus Store.
It's awesome when people try that out, their hands fall on the floor. Like this.
Nice. It also allows you to use Oculus avatars and any of the other Oculus service-based stuff. All that requires being deployed through the Oculus Store. Previous to App Lab, you could do it through Rift. That worked fine, but Rift doesn't have a gatekeeper like Quest apps did. And then you have, it's basically a feature identical to the Rift version, if you've been familiar with that at all, where you can set up your deployment channels, invite people to them, and then you have your release channel where after you've done all your testing with whatever your test users are, you can push it out to release channel, and then it can be published to the store for sale. And then if it's purchased, then they'll get updates through the release channel and stuff like that.
And there was a feature we didn't use that you don't have to invite each person. They can opt themselves in if you give them the URL.
Yep. So you can set it up so that, and it supports being done via a published app on the the regular published channel, and then the beta. So they could go in and subscribe themselves to access the beta version and test the beta version while also having access to the release channel version as well. So, and you can kind of do that just on normal Oculus stuff. On your desktop, you can switch to the beta channel of the Oculus desktop application, and then if you don't like that, you can switch back to the release channel. It's similar to that. So you can have, you can experiment with experimental features, but still have access to the stable version also. So that's pretty new. This is the first time I've messed with it. If you go to do it, there's some things you have to change from normal, if you've done normal Android deployment from Unity. Typically when you're doing just a stock Android build, you set up your Unity project for Android, switch the platform over to Android, and you go into the player settings and you just configure the, OS version min-max, and you just do a build, and then you can just dump that on the Quest. When you go to the App Store, the App Lab version, that's not enough. Like, they flag your app instantly as it doesn't have the right kind of provisioning, it doesn't have the right kind of app manifest, and so you have to make a few changes minimum to get that to work. If you have the Oculus SDK tool set installed in your Unity project, there's an Oculus menu at the top. If you go under that, there's an option that says Generate App Store Compatible Manifest. You have to do that, otherwise you can't get your app to publish through App Store. When you do that, it just creates a new XML file. It puts it, I believe, in the plugins Android folder in your project, and then so there's a new manifest that gets put in there, and that's the baked one. And it has a bunch of settings in it that are specific to the Oculus Store deployment. When you do a normal publish, also, you typically will use the generic Android self-signing certificates. That doesn't work either when you deploy to App Lab. You have to go in to your player settings, and you have to create a new key store and put in your company information and whatnot. Once you do those 2 steps, then you can just upload it through the App Lab uploader, and then it'll work fine. So just remember those 2 things: creating a custom key store and creating a Oculus Store compatible app manifest. Those are the 2 minimum things that you have to do to get it to upload. Otherwise, it just uploads, it does like a test, and then it spits it out and says that your app's not compatible with App Lab deployment. And then you get frustrated.
And it's actually a command line interface for all this too.
Yeah, you can also, if you haven't, you should all install Oculus Developer Hub. It's like it's one of the best tools that they've made so far for this kind of stuff. It's basically sort of like SideQuest. It's a developer tool, obviously, so you would want to use it if you're a developer. If you're just a casual user, it's probably not that useful for you. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if all the functionality gets unlocked if you don't have a developer account.
So can you push updates through that then? To your app?
Can.
Oh, nice.
So you basically, if you connect your headset to your computer via USB, it will show up automatically as a device in the Oculus Developer Hub app, which is it's a desktop application. It supports Mac and Windows. It's written with Electron JS, so it's a cross-platform application. But it will then allow you to do debugging. There's like a checkbox right in the UI to turn on the Oculus Developer Stats HUD that will show you frame rate and GPU level and CPU level without having to do the manual installation of the app or turning on the app through the user interface of the Quest itself. It can stream out, and you can pick either both eyes or left eye or right eye for the stream. So you can record videos of what you're doing, and it just streams it right out from there into the tool. You can take screenshots. You can disable the proximity sensor, so that keeps turning your headset off if you take it off. You can disable the Guardian. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And then also it has, if you're doing deployment, it'll show you your apps that you've set up in App Lab. You can click on that, you can pick the release channel, and you can click the upload button and upload a build right there. And it has a progress indicator. And it doesn't have, if you try to use the web interface to do that, sometimes it can time out, especially if your app is big. And so they actually recommend you use your command line tool or the Oculus Developer Hub to do your uploads, because they work around that.
Yeah.
So
I'll give that a shot. I've been using command line, but it'd be easier to have
It's just now available in the latest update to Oculus Developer Hub. I think it's been less than 3 weeks or something for that feature to exist. So it wouldn't surprise me if you tried.
Yeah, I didn't know about it.
The other feature I like a lot is you can toggle the InQuest HUD for OVR metrics.
Yep.
So you can turn that on and then turn it off. You can do that in your headset, but you got to exit the app and enter their app to change it, and then exit that app and then go back into the app you're trying to test. And it's just nice to do it on the fly.
It will turn on ADB's debugging, so you get like logcat and stuff like that. So it'll debug all that stuff out to the Oculus Developer Hub app.
the filtering too, right?
Yep. So you can do some of the stuff you would have to use a bunch of tools and or Unity to do, and it just will do it as a separate process on just the app itself. So pretty useful. You can also use it like go ahead.
Sorry. Are you using it with the USB cable still, or are you full wireless with it?
I've been mostly doing it with the USB cable, but
Me too.
It does work wirelessly as well. But you can also just drag your APK onto it, and then it will pop up a box, and then it shows your devices, and then you can just drag it onto the Quest 2 or Quest 1, and it will then just install the app onto the device also. So it acts just like SideQuest, basically, in that regard.
They're trying to kill SideQuest.
Well, I think they're trying to turn SideQuest into marketing, right?
Yeah.
Exploration finding apps.
Right.
And then I think that App Lab should eventually make it so that most people don't have to turn their device to developer mode. Because right now there's probably 5 million developers that only did it so they can install Puzzle Quest on their Quest.
Yeah.
Or whatever side-loaded thing it is, This gives you the way to basically do that, except anyone in the general public can install the app, and it doesn't require, creating fake developer accounts and all jumping through all the hoops, essentially. So, and it works just like the Rift version. So if you use the Rift version, I've been super happy. Other than the signing stuff, which is obviously not a problem on desktop, but it is a problem because Android needs that stuff, and they do have decent dialogues that explain what's wrong. So if you just are used to doing a Unity build for Android and plopping Enter Quest, if you try and upload that, there's a giant dialogue that says, this is all the stuff that's wrong. Here's links to the documentation that says how to fix whatever it is that you did wrong. So it's very, very opaque what you need to do to fix it. It's just that if you're expecting it to just work and it doesn't, it might be a little frustrating from that standpoint. But especially if you've already had that app installed on your device and it's just, it's the upload to Oculus that's not working. The app is actually working. Now it's just a app signing issue at that point, which you can overcome pretty easily. Any questions? We got original creator right here, and we got me for what I'm worth. If you have any. So this specific thing will probably not be updated any more than this, unless we use it as a test bed for features. This was built just as literally an experiment and to show to a client what was possible.
Yeah, I'm glad it's getting more use.
Yeah, so this was it's been just sitting around collecting dust. We've showed it to various people, obviously, but for maybe the last, 4 months, it's just been sitting there, basically.
Can you take away permissions? Can you take this app away from us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably will do that. Once we're done, I'll probably just pull the app from App Lab.
Don't take it from us, Matt.
Maybe I'll leave it for a little bit, but it's just an experiment, right? And we were just using that to make the deployment easier to all you. So, but as far as the video syncing, it probably maybe won't be in this one, but something that we do for sure, probably within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll have it for sure.
If you were to do it, it's really not too tricky. You just need to send the timestamp from someone else who's in the room, essentially.
So just basically, the first person who zones in is the actor. They become the owner of the position of the video, essentially. And then when anyone else zones in, there's just a server variable that just gets written, that gets read by each client, and it just updates the start position of that video. So when they zone in and they move over there, it's playing from the appropriate start position. And then it's within seconds or milliseconds of sync, and I think that's pretty good overall.
For sure.
That's probably how apps like Big Screen and stuff work, right?
Yeah, they do it for sure that way because depending on the type. Time sync, basically. And then if new people come in, it starts the initial time sync for that. And that's one of their mechanisms to work around, people illegally watching content, because they don't want it to touch any of their servers, because they don't want to be responsible for any of that content touching something that they had, control over and being liable essentially for anything that happened. We probably wouldn't be worried about that in this space because it's purpose-built for whatever our functionality is, so we know exactly what's going on here, so we could just package it in and it would be fine. But if you're giving the public access and allowing them to bring in content, the problem is that an IP holder is not going to probably sue the person who's using the app. They're going to sue the app because they're going to go where the money is, right? So something that's in the world of copyright, protections and IP projections is something to be careful of in this space.
Any other questions, Marty, from Twitch? I've got a question for the group here. I've got legendarily bad internet, and so I saw Matt's audio glitch out maybe 3 times tonight. Anybody else? Show of hands.
About the same.
How many times? About the same? So that might have been happening on the networking tier, maybe.
It's possible.
It's so hard to tell. Yeah.
If the connection was interrupted... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I haven't heard anything, but I've mostly been talking. So.
I was just going to say, if we all heard a glitch, then it was most likely all the data from his voice getting sent up to their server didn't get through. If all of us heard it.
La-di-da.
30 out. 35 out, something like that. So way faster down than out, but still pretty decent, I think.
Yeah.
But also, we don't have any over-the-air, content. Everything is streaming. So my house has probably got iPads and TVs and all kinds of stuff streaming right now. So I don't know how much is being used. But compared to AltSpace, I hear Jack cut out all the time, but that's mostly Jack.
That's Zach's fault. Yeah.
He's got prehistoric internet in Shakopee. It's basically just like fiber optics connect to tin cans or something. I don't think it's strings. It's probably a little faster than strings.
I've actually got a 5G T-Mobile router here in the window, and you can't do any port forwarding or any kind of controllable punch through on it. It didn't work. That all happens at the tower. So,
nice.
Whoops. But yeah, that's maybe an option for some other people. It doesn't have a contract, so you can ask all the questions you want, and they'll just give you random words in response, and then you just get the service for a month and see if it works. And then when it doesn't, send it back because there's no contract. But cool. Well, if no other questions, let's just do a little socializing before we head off. I forgot to ask at the start of the meeting, anybody pre-order any of the new hardware that just is about to ship? So either of the Vives or...
I pre-ordered the Vive Pro 2.
Okay. Just the headset?
Yeah, just the headset, because I've already got base stations and index controllers, so...
And that's about to ship, right? In a week?
Are you still rocking 1.0 tracking, or are you going to switch to 2.0?
1.0 tracking, just going to leave it. It works great, so...
It does. If you don't have a huge space,
and it's compatible
really
with all my legacy devices, so...
Yep.
And it ships in a week or two?
I think so. I really haven't paid attention to that. I just kind of bought it and I get it when I get it. But
yeah, if you want to give a review, I'm super curious about the lenses.
Yeah, I think Rem 5 is going to get some as well, right, Brian?
Yeah, we're looking to upgrade all of our pods with Pro 2s. So
if you want to go try one for yourself,
everybody can come in and we'll do a little Yeah, everybody can come check them out. Try before
That'd
you
be
buy
fun.
if you want over at our place. So.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Did anybody get the Focus 3? Anybody order a Focus 3?
Oh, you have
Did we
to apply for
I
that.
don't know if we even had access. Yeah, I think we had to apply to get into some early access program, but yeah, we plan on grabbing some of those too. So we'll let you know when everything comes to the door, and we could maybe do in real life thing. So
Yeah.
just crazy enough. Just crazy enough.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
I'm a little scared of the XR2 on Vive stuff because it just seems like in their previous mobile device, they didn't do anywhere near the level of optimization that Oculus did. And I think that it's going to be the same on that device. Like, it's going to work and be okay, but it's going to feel slower and clunkier than the Oculus hardware.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, but yeah. Well, the enthusiasts with money to burn think it's going to be a good wireless PC headset. They're not even concerned about native apps, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So
But the
that'll be
Quest
interesting.
2 is now a pretty decent wireless PC headset.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
AirLink works really good. I don't know if anyone else has played around with it, but
I've tried it. I tried it like right when it came out. I don't know if they've pushed more updates to it, but yeah, it works pretty good.
I'm on Wi-Fi 6 now, so I can't see how it's like on slightly slower. And
The
on
only
Wi-Fi
difference
5,
I notice between like AirLink and using an actual cable is if I turn my head really fast, like in shooting games, I get a little bit of motion sickness. It's like it can't quite keep up. I see black more than I would if I was using a
ask you
cable.
a question. Is your desktop plugged in with an Ethernet cable, or is it on Wi-Fi?
It's on Ethernet.
Okay, so your setup is computer on Ethernet directly to the router with the headset on Wi-Fi.
And the router is mounted up high, maybe like 10 feet away. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing is, depending on your GPU, it's got to do all that video encoding. Same like the wired, but it seems like it's more sensitive, at least on mine. I have old GPUs though too.
Yeah.
I do know that, and you've had the same problem, Matt, is that when you use Oculus Link and Unity, like, it's ridiculously slow. Like, there's some weird lag that happens, and
can glitch
sometimes
out
it's
periodically
fine,
too,
sometimes
and
it's not. Like, it's
sometimes I get audio issues.
And I did, when I was doing the same thing with AirLink, it seemed better for some reason. I have no idea why, but it seems like an odd thing given it's effectively the same technology. It's just one's going over a wire,
I did have some of the same glitches I get over, Oculus Link cable. Like, there's in my app, like it periodically the audio sounds really like stuttery, but I don't know.
It is pre-release, and I will say too that virtual desktop still is awesome, and it has a lot more control over the streaming quality and stuff like that. So hopefully they're going to get to that level. But if you were having problems with that, with AirLink, you could always use virtual desktop still and have a good experience.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta duck out. My battery's about to die.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Same. I'll see you guys.
Does anybody consider
later, Brian?
All right.
Yep, we're wrapped up.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining the stream.
Cool.
Very cool. Thanks, Matt.
Did anybody look at the Pico Neo? Is that a